I think everyone kind of realizes like it's still Scottie. He's still going to figure it out, and he's probably going to win a bunch this year. And the big thing is, if he's a perfect fit for any golf course in the world, it might be TPC Sawgrass. And I think people have, number one, seen that in his play, but also they recognize like, okay, this is a place where you need accuracy and iron play, and there's nobody better at either than Scottie.
Well, Tambo, there was no one better than Scottie, but now he can't hit an iron.
Yeah, I think it's funny, Pat. Like what you said, we haven't been on for a little while together, but doing the football shows together, not to switch gears completely, but just to note that some weeks people just have the money for Jamar Chase. Some weeks people just have the money for CMC, even though they like Bijan, who's below him, or they like a certain receiver who's less than Jamar Chase. They'll spend it. Here they have the ability to spend it and the reason to. And so I think Alex nailed it with his point of it. It literally doesn't matter. What have you done for me lately? This is still Scottie Scheffler. It's Scottie. If anything, I think more people think he's going to bounce back. And this is the course that he does it at. This is what we've been waiting for.
At Mayo Experience.
Players Championship, DraftKings picks. We're building lineups, going over strategy. So you good people out there, you smash the like, you sub to the channel, and in the comment section, give me your single favorite play in the $6,000 range on DraftKings, all right? Because I got from FTNFantasy.com, Alex Blickle, and making his triumphant return to the show from ShipItNation.com, Toe, Taggin, Tambo. Tyler, how are you?
Pat, I'm good. I'm back. I had to come back. It's major season. First major. March is major, they say now, but I know that'll trigger everybody, but excited to be back. Happy to be back with you, and always fun to be around my guy, Alex Blickle, doing Leverage Lane with him every week on Wednesdays. So excited to have the trio together.
Blickle, let's start with this. I don't know what to do with the top here. I know what to do with the bottom, I think. I have a strong lean of what to do with the bottom of the DraftKings pricing. No idea what to do with the top.
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of dynamic this week, and it's another week where if we want to use Scottie, we definitely can, because as you just said, like the bottom of the board does have some interesting ways to build, and a lot of players that I think a lot of us are going to feel some conviction on. And so, do we play Scottie? Do we not play Scottie? If we're not playing Scottie, are we going to the obvious guys like Morikawa, or are we trying to get different up top with someone like Xander? It's going to be a very fun puzzle this week.
How do you approach the players, Tambo? Because I have a note written at the top of my column when I open up the new document every single year to write it, is that don't waste your money on the players. You're not good at this one.
Yeah, my note is a little bit different. It says fade all the chalk 7,900 and below. So, that's already formulating this week, but this is a tournament where you don't usually see that come through. This week, extremely interesting, Pat, because you'll remember our famous Players Wave advantage week when it flipped on us. This could be the same thing again that we see here.
You think so? Because I didn't see that much in the weather to really freak me out as of yet.
I think it's more what the public sees. And right now, a lot of the conversation is around looking at the PM AM wave, having it a bit tricky if it stays that way. But then, of course, people are already baking in, well, what if it delays? Then it's going to be the other way. And there's another caveat to that is Rory McIlroy with the back injury has a very late tee time on Thursday. And who knows? I mean, the late withdrawal or round 3 withdrawal last week, but we had late WDs with Jake Knapp, et cetera, in the previous week. So people are watching that as well, I think. And that's, just going to boost ownership in different places.
So Keith is at the course right now. He's at Sawgrass. I actually texted him this morning because Rory is staying at home right now and asking him what the vibe is around people there, what they're saying about Rory. And he's just saying, he's like, it's a big unknown. No one really knows what's going on at the moment, but the way that he kind of spelled it out is that the players is more important than API, but the Masters is more important than the players. So we'll have to wait and see. My take on this, I think he's going to be fine, honestly. These back things, like when I've had back spasms, and I guess everybody is different, so you don't know. And Rory's obviously giving it a bit more torque than I'm giving it with my swing. But whenever I've had these, like either just it's spasms and it won't release, like 3 to 5 days is usually the timeline where it's back to normal, if this isn't something that regularly occurs. And I'm guessing that it's not something regular for Rory, or else he wouldn't be playing a ton of golf.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, on that, the 13 years since his last WD, T10, going into the weekend at a signature event, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, one that he typically does quite well at. It's at least to say that even if the back is okay Thursday, Friday, he's not afraid to just say, I'm out if, this is going to be anything that lingers, but you would think it was for the Players or the Masters or the whole season. So it's got to be something if that's the case, and still not being out there is not too exciting to think about.
Well, sort of, but like if your back does spasm up, Alex, there's nothing you can really do about it until it goes away. And once it goes away, you're kind of fine.
Yeah, as long as there's no like real muscular damage that he did. And I'm kind of with you. I really don't know what to expect. The one thing I will say is I think we can pretty clearly expect low ownership on Rory if he does play, because as Tambo pointed out, like he's got a late tee time. We're probably not going to get any conclusive news about whether he's teeing up or not by Thursday morning. So anyone who is playing him is going to be taking a risk, and that's just going to mean low ownership for him.
So it means low ownership. When we talk about low ownership, what would you guys expect? If this is all the news that we get, and on Wednesday he's like, yeah, I'm going to give it a go, and that's all we hear. We have no ID. He's like, yeah, I'm feeling fine. Are we thinking like sub 10%? Are we thinking 15%? Are we thinking 5%? What do you guys think?
I think we'd probably see something like 10% if he says, I'm going to give it a go. If the only word we get is that he's traveling to Sawgrass to try, then it's going to be, I don't know, 3%, 5%, something crazy like that.
Anecdotally, Tambo, going back in my mind just now without any other research, every time that we've heard this about someone, they've come like T2 in a tournament.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I don't remember all of them, but like one was Billy Horschel, worst day ever on the range at the Memorial, and then goes out to win. It was like that was, one of them. But yeah, it happens for sure. I think Alex nailed it. He's obviously the ownership guru here to be able to think that through, and I think he nailed it. Like it's going to be that type of situation. I do think, Pat, that's the kind of news that we do get, though. It's just going to be like, yep, Rory's going to give it a go. See how it goes. And then everyone's going to have to make their decision based off of that. So at least in the higher dollar, smaller field, single entry type stuff, I don't think people are risking it there as much as in, say, the Millie Maker or the $5 or the 100K up top this week on DraftKings, where people will say, you know what? I'll burn some lineups on seeing if Rory's okay because I've been burned going the other way before, to your point. So, yeah, I think that's how it kind of shakes out from my eyes anyway.
I think we all remember when Tony Finau broke his ankle at the Masters. And it's like, oh, God, let's not use that guy. I think he came T3 that week.
That was a great one. I had him that week because of the low ownership, and that was a fun one too because everyone thought that he was like a really bad fit for the course, and at the time he was a much different player than he is now. But yeah, it's like we said, it's another piece to the puzzle this week, and it's one that even if you feel like a lot of conviction on, oh man, he's going to be 3% and he's going to play, it's still not an easy decision to play him just because there are so many great options up there, arguably who are better fits for the course, even though Rory's the defending champ.
Yeah, and won twice at Sawgrass since its move to March. There's something to not overlook with that, too. But I think that you're right, that even if you get Rory completely right, that, he wasn't hurt at all. Man, I got him at 4% ownership. That still doesn't mean he's going to win.
Yeah.
Or outplay the guys who are, $1,500 cheaper. And if you're using someone who's $1,500 more expensive than, the Siwoo to Morikawa range, for example, you really need him to not just match them, but actually beat them.
Tambo, how much of your, let's say, allocation of ownership, your portfolio in some of these big GPPs, which I know you're going to max or at least have 100 lineups in, how much money are you willing to donk off on Rory in those?
Oh, probably quite a bit. Yeah, like I'm leaning with you. Like I was just noting everything that I see, but to your point earlier and what I was saying, like if he's playing, gotta assume he's healthy. Like you said, back can definitely just be something that flares up. He doesn't want to risk it, comes back out the next week and he's good to go, gets in a groove and rolls. I'm guessing if he's going to be 10%, I'd be comfortable having like 20%, get double the field in something like the $5, the $25 Millie Maker, something like that. We'll see how it shakes out because it does matter to Alex's point there of the other guys that are around him and the price tags involved. Like Morikawa is still almost $2,000 cheaper. He'll be extremely popular, but even below that, there's 4 to 5 guys that you could go to there and then different roster constructions on top of the fact that you've got Scottie right above him at an extremely high price that people struggle with, but there's a ton of good options in this field down below that you can put with him.
So same question to you, Alex, and then what do you do in 3 max single entry? Because I was thinking about using, if Rory's okay, says he's okay, whether he's okay or not, again, we don't know. I would be willing to burn him in single entries as well at like 2% ownership. And if he wins, I win.
I was just going to make that exact point where I feel like for one thing, it's a lot easier to use Rory in MME because if you have, like Tambo said, if you have 20% of your lineups that are dead, so be it. You still are alive in all the other 80%. Now those other 80% are in better position than they were previously because Rory's now not playing. But the counter to that is he's probably not going to get down to the 2-3% that he might be in single entries in MME. So the risk is higher in single entry, but the reward is also potentially higher in single entry. And that's not something that I historically have shied away from. I'm very, very much one to take those big types of risks in single entry. And if the ownership's low enough and the GPP scores are screaming that Rory's potentially like one of the best GPP plays that we'll see in years because his ownership is only that low because of the injury risk, then that's the kind of play that I am definitely known to make.
The wave stacks that you were talking about, I'm using the Windfinder Palm Valley ICWW. If you're looking for the direct link for that, hit the description, join my Substack. It's completely free. It's in the main article that is up there right now. What we're seeing from the weather at the moment is more winds and a bit of rain starting in the later afternoon. Although the gusts all week or all day on Thursday, Tambo, seem like they're all pretty high. Like it goes from like 7 consistent to 20 gusts in the morning, and the gusts stay the same. It's just the consistent wind picks up all day long. There's a case you could make that it's worse when it's low wind and huge gusts versus constant wind and the same sort of gust, that there's not that big of a gap between the constant wind and gusts. But it's that rain in the evening that either softens the course in the morning on Friday for windier conditions than in the afternoon on Friday. Like everything right now, as you mentioned, is kind of leaning towards the AM, PM type build, but I wouldn't trust this for a second. I've been burned at this course way too many times.
That was my second note, Pat, actually, after the fade all the chalk 7,900 and below, which is, again, very generic. We're not fading all the chalk. Shout out to my guy, big guy in the sky, as everybody knows, rest in peace, DJM, but he says, we don't play donkey chalk except when we do. Well, there's going to be tons of guys that you'll still fit into your lineups, just how you build around them. But as far as the wave stacks go, my second note is from our time, Pat, back getting it wrong. It says, make sure if you're stacking to stack both ways. And that's part of it. But I think in general, that's more of like if you're going to build in sets. I think if you've got good projections, good ownership, Alex and I talk through this every week, you can kind of see where, at the end of the day, unless you have back in the day, Pat, British Open style, like, Stenson and Phil Mickelson pocket advantages, things like that, you're just not seeing it play out that often anymore, even though you can get high leverage on, the amount of 6-0 lineups going one way versus what the field has. You can still get leverage on that, but it's better to do it sort of with like a set or part of your portfolio versus trying just to like outsmart the field, because you said it yourself, it can easily go the other way, as we know all too well.
If you want to get access to ownership projections, optimizer, projections, tournament simulations, and the biggest golf database that you can customize any way you want, well, this is the week for you. BetSportsGolf.com, the rabbit hole tool that you've been seeing me do on the research shows, talking about all over. It's been updated. It has more stats than ever that you can customize and make. And it's on for $1 this week. Go to BetSportsGolf.com, use the code Sawgrass, $1 for the week, and it'll get you access to the live leaderboard on the site. Fantastic for making showdown lineups, head-to-head bets during the course of the week. No better time to get in than right now. Code Sawgrass at BetSportsGolf.com. Blickle, can you expand a little bit on what Tambo said about building in sets and what that actually means for people who may not know?
Yeah, it's when you've got multiple lineups and you want the different lineups to tell different stories. And so one lineup can be the story that, hey, you know what, the early late wave advantage actually shows up, and you want 6 early guys, 0 late guys. And then a different lineup says, well, wait, what if it's actually the opposite and it's the late early? And so you can build in that way. And then you can also do things like skill set stacks, where you've got a set of lineups that are all about accurate guys who are really good with their iron play. And then the next set is about bombers who are going to take advantage if the course plays a little bit softer this year and they get to hit a little bit more drivers and really push the ball down, or if the rough isn't as bad this year, things like that. And so basically it just means you're telling different stories in different lineups. And to that point, like one of the things that I have noted over the years about the weather at this course, and it's actually something that Kisner has said like over and over on the broadcast, I think Horschel has talked about it as well, is the north wind here is a lot more difficult than all the other winds. And so that's something that I'm going to be looking at as well. It's not just which day has the higher winds or the higher wind gusts. It's also which day and what time periods potentially have that north wind.
So the north wind, meaning it's going north or coming from the north?
From the north.
So directionally, if you were looking at it going south.
Yes. Yeah. It's essentially when the colder air from the north comes down and it makes like a 15-mile-an-hour wind play like a 25-mile-an-hour wind.
So that's what currently is projected for Thursday afternoon. And then all of Friday continues to have that same wind. Do you think that if we can figure that out, you can see it on the screen right now, Blickle, this is what we're talking about right here, like pointing south, but coming from the north.
Yes. Yeah. So that will be more difficult. That's a big potential advantage over on Underdog, by the way, in the pick'em games. Maybe we get some like whole, 16 through 18 or something like that, and we can take advantage of the north wind, making it play a lot tougher. But yeah, it's also something that, if one wave is going to have to play in the north wind twice and the other wind only has to play in it once, even if the group that's playing in the north wind once has slightly lighter winds, it still might end up being more difficult for them. And so that's one of those things where like you can play both sides very easily because there are multiple paths to them ending up having it worse, which is, they could have the more difficult wind directions or they could have the more difficult wind gusts. We don't know which one's going to win out.
The issue again comes down to is how reliable can we trust a forecast that it doesn't just move into the other wave. Oh, it showed up early. Darn.
Yeah, I actually want to talk to some weather guys. Maybe I'll DM Kevin Roth or something. But like, which is more predictable? Is it that the wind direction is more predictable, or the wind speed is more predictable, or the rain is more predictable? What aspects of the forecast can we actually trust, and which ones should we say, it's way too early at this point to know?
That kind of goes back to what you were saying, Tambo, that maybe you just play both sides and, play a mix is probably the best idea to do it. But if you play 50 lineups, you're like, I got 10 a.m. PM and 10 p.m. a.m. and roll with the other 30.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously the trolls out there and the people, if I had all those lineups, et cetera, but it's like, I think it's everything in the world, Pat. If someone's a stock investor, nothing forces them to walk in to their account and put all their money on one stock. You're allowed to spread it out. You can hedge, you can move things around. That's literally the point of having a portfolio. So all it's stating is when we know these to be pretty solid sample sizes now at this course and at this event and the way it plays out and bringing all these other factors. And it's not trying to be geniuses here. It's just to say, if you do have the portfolio to work with, it's not a bad idea to have some sets that set you up for that. And again, going back to the British Open, people that had those pocket waves, well, those are the people that had the Stenson Mickelson lineups. If you go to the Players, the year you and I were involved, I think it was, Dak, I forget his name. It's like Dak 3616. He's the man. He's awesome dude. He won the Millie Maker, and it was flipping the build. He went to the other side and remember, Pat, the numbers came out. Sky posted them. It was like less than 1% went the opposite way, and like 11 or 12% went with us on the other way. And he had just happened to have like 5 to 10% of the other wave and ended up winning the Millie Maker. So flipping it that way and having a portfolio and using it to your advantage, nothing wrong with that at all.
It just setting yourself up that if it's almost like what you said about fading the chalk below $7,900 at this tournament, because stuff explodes here all the time. It's one of the highest variant type tournaments that we see all year long. That if you're just randomly as Cust always likes to point out, if you're just standing at the back of the train when they're throwing out money, you should just grab it.
I like that one. Yeah, definitely.
And we didn't expect the Players when Cam Smith won to get delayed 31 hours, and then the guys had to come back onto the course.
Man, Anirban Lahiri, man, just chasing her down at the end. Like, what is going on here? It's like, did not have him in any player pools that week, myself at least. So yeah, it's interesting the way it can always shake out. But I think using a portfolio to your advantage, and you can do it in less lineups, it just obviously becomes more of a decision then. And obviously, if you only have one lineup or a single entry, I'll say two things. One, obviously you have to make a choice and pick your lane. That's what Alex and I talk about on Wednesdays, but also nothing says you have to only do that. If you decide, Alex has talked tons about playing a 3 max like a single entry and maybe having one variation and 2 the same or whatever, but you're allowed to do whatever you want. It's just what you decide going into the week and what you see out there before you start building.
There's going to be ample opportunity for pick'em plays on Underdog this week. So good news. Code Mayo, if you are not signed up, gets you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000 plus. If you play $5 in the pick'em game, there's going to give you $75 on top of that, win or lose. So use code Mayo at Underdog and join Blickle's Discord. Alex, you've been printing over there. I've been benefiting.
It's been fun. Yeah. The PGA streets have been really good, and I've now hit 12 straight NBA picks. So it's been a very fun week.
You can get the link to Blickle's Discord down in the description right now. When we return, we're going to talk about Scottie Scheffler, Scottie builds, and should we be using Scottie or not? Stay tuned. It's winter and it's cold. At least where I'm at. And I'm spending way more time indoors, aka I'm sleeping more. If you're like me, it's time to upgrade your sleep and switch to Helix. You'll never go back. I took the Helix sleep quiz. It matched me to the right mattress for how I actually sleep, not how some showroom goober thinks I sleep. And since it's been all restful nights, no tossing, no back pain, and my sleep tracking actually backs that up. My deep sleep numbers off the charts, good, way better than before. We've got more than just one Helix in our house now, too. Just threw one in the upcoming baby's room so I can get back to sleep quickly the moment that the baby goes down. Helix builds mattresses for different people, not a one-size-fits-all nonsense, because that wouldn't make any sense. There's free shipping in the United States and a 120-night sleep trial with a limited lifetime warranty. Go to helixsleep.com/Mayo for 27% off, site-wide exclusive for listeners of the Pat Mayo Experience. That's helixsleep.com/Mayo. Do it now! A well-built wardrobe isn't about having more clothes, it's about having the right pieces that actually work together and hold up over time. That's what Quince does best. Quince has the everyday essentials that I love with quality that lasts. Organic cotton sweaters, polos for any occasion, lightweight jackets that keep you warm as the seasons start to shift, all designed to be easy to wear and easy to rely on. They work directly with top factories and cut out the middleman. So you're not paying for brand markup, just quality clothing that's built to handle daily wear and still look good season after season. The wool coat I picked up from Quince is holding up way better than the other coats that I've bought for way more. Looks good, keeps me warm, didn't break the bank. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/Mayo for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. It's now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Mayo. I'm currently 4 months off cigs, and cravings aren't just about nicotine. They're about habit. The hand-to-mouth motion, that quick pause during the day and when you're trying to quit, it's breaking that loop that's the hardest part. That's why people replace smoking with eating, something of which I am very guilty of. That's where Fume comes in. Not only is Fume spelled with an umlaut, which is awesome, Fume is a flavored air device designed to help you ditch vaping or smoking by replacing the habit itself. No nicotine, no batteries, no vapor, just a weighted, twisty, fidget-friendly device that gives your hands and mouth something to do when the cravings hit. I've had these moments where I just normally reach for a cig. Instead, I just grab my Fume to fidget with. That interruption is exactly why it works. The flavors are lighter too. Think like flavored water versus soda. Crisp mint, strongest if you're a heavy user. Raspberry, got some more of that tangy sweetness. It's quite nice. Fume has already helped over 700,000 people take steps towards better habits. And now, it's your turn. Use my code MAYO to get a free gift with your Journey Pack. Head to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com and use code MAYO to claim your free gift today. Scottie Scheffler is $14,200. The next closest guy is Rory at 11.7, but we still don't know about his back, as we discussed. Then it's Fleetwood at 10.3. So it's a $3,900 difference between Scheffler and the next legitimately viable person that the public is going to go to. I very much doubt, unless they don't know about Rory's back, that shitter guy entering one lineup into the Millie Maker is going to be like, you know who I need here? Rory. They'll probably go at least to Fleetwood or further down the board than that. What do you guys anticipate the sentiment around Scheffler is going to be? Because eventually it's going to be a really good buying opportunity on Scheffler, especially with the pricing this week, that you can make it work so easily. But what do you think that the public sees of him? Is he a 25% guy this week? Is he a 20% guy this week? Because I mean, he got up there sort of, but much lower than he normally does in a limited field event last week, and now you have more options to choose from.
It seems like he's stuck in this like 20 to 30% range right now, doesn't it? Where, and I wonder, I wish I actually had data on this. Like, is it the same 20% that's just playing Scottie over and over again? Or is it a different 20%? And it just happens to be that, you know, that portion of the field wants to play him each week. And so, you know, one thing that actually all three of us have talked about so far this season is the Scottie decision has largely come down not to how you feel about Scottie, but how you feel about everyone else you have to play to fit Scottie. And this is definitely one of the weeks where, number one, it's once again pretty easy to fit him. And actually, like, there are lots and lots of players, just like last week, that not only are we okay with playing, but that we're actually excited to play. And then number two, this is a place that is just so incredibly Scottie Scheffler. Like, there's no surprise that he has been as dominant as he has been here. So I think that we will probably see, if anything, slightly higher ownership on Scottie than what we've seen to this point.
And it's so easy to fill out these rosters. I'm building one right now with kind of the guys at the bottom that I like in the $6,000 area. Like Scheffler's up top. That leaves you with 71 left. I went Michael Kim, Ryo Hitsetsune, Joel Damon, and now I got $7,900 Tambo for two extra guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that are leading to this. Nobody really wants Fleetwood after disappointment from last week. We've got issues with Rory's back that we talked about. The options, the other thing you got to look at too, and that I spend a ton of time with is looking at, like, when you see people mentioning the weather. For Scottie's also got the AM tee time that people are already interested in. And then you go to the bottom and look at all of the guys that would fit with him that also fit that wave. You've got tons of options with Gerard, Homa, Hogard, Norin, Berger, Pendrith, Bez, all these different options down below. And then you got Castillo coming off the win at 6,200 over in Puerto Rico. So lots of guys that you can fit with Scottie, even if going the wave build or without, but it's all those factors. And then nobody really wanting him, wanting the guys in between him and Morikawa at the top. I think Morikawa is going to be just super owned, but I definitely think, more will get to Scottie now with the Rory situation and the fact that Fleetwood is 10-3 and didn't have a great week last week.
How comfortable are you, Blickle, going down the board to Joel Damon at $6,100? Because I think he's legitimately a great play.
Yeah, I think there are a number of really good plays down there this week. Like Castillo, as Tambo mentioned, I think Andrew Putnam is in play. It's kind of odd to kind of be naming these guys, but think about it, like in any other signature event, these guys are not 61 to 63. They're 66, 6,700, something like that. So it's just this field is so incredibly deep, and there are so many players that all of the pricing is kind of pushed down a little bit towards that 6,000 range.
Yeah, Ricky Castillo at 62, I imagine is going to be. What do you think that he can break 5% at $6,200?
Potentially. I mean, I think it's very clear that he'll be one of the more popular options down here, but to the point that I was just making, like with how many players there are, nobody's going to be that popular. No one can possibly be quote unquote chalk down here because there just aren't going to be enough roster builds that actually need a player down here that any of them are going to be, pushing 10% or something like that.
It's been a while since you've been on the show, Tambo, but your boy Sungjae is $6,400.
Yeah, I know. The intervention was supposed to happen, but then he got injured and all that stuff. So now I'm sucked right back in. But I actually didn't play him the first time out, and it wasn't the best showing for him, obviously. But 6,400, I'm definitely gonna take some stabs. But I kind of like Haotong there for the exact same price if I'm going down there. But I think one thing that's important to talk about too, and Alex has done a great job bringing this up all season long, is like, even though the Damons and the Castillos and those types of guys won't get to like quote unquote chalk, to his point, it's about where do they show up. And Castillo by himself, not a super high percentage probably overall, but what about Castillo in Scottie Scheffler lineups? Well, obviously a ton, right? Because he's what makes it all work. So just looking at the combinations that people are putting together with them, that's something that we've been looking a lot at as well this season. So I think that's going to be very common this week.
Trying to figure out how to finish off this lineup. I'm good with full fade on Ricky Castillo. It's he just coming off a win, career-changing opportunity for him. Although his strokes gain in Florida is very good. Obviously, he went to the University of Florida. He lives in Jacksonville. And Tambo, we once mocked Cam Smith living at the course, but then he ended up winning, so that kind of backfired in our face. But I'm just good with playing Damon instead. So Scheffler, Michael Kim. Michael Kim's ball striking last week was top notch. So I'm back in. Damon, Hitsetsune. I threw Nikolai Højgaard into this lineup as well, who I think that after last week, people are just, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I think people are off of him right now. And then that leaves you into this area, which I kind of hate the most, this mid-8 range from Bobby Mack at 88 all the way down to hell. Akshay at 77. I don't know what to do with here. All I know is that people are going to use Cam Young. That's all I have figured out about this range.
Yeah, the 8K range, that's another reason going back to like the Colin Morikawa thing. If you start with Morikawa, you could fit one or two other 9K guys, really three if you wanted, but just noting it is like, I don't think people love Justin Rose, Sam Burns, Ben Griffin, Cantlay, JT, like all these guys kind of going overlooked. It's more interesting to me, the upper 7K range. And I would actually be fine just leaving the money. Like you have 8,300 right now left for Ben Griffin.
Yeah.
Which puts you at Ben Griffin, but not that you want him. But I'm just saying, instead of Cam Young, you could also just drop down to whoever you like in that upper 7K range, and I'd be fine with that as well.
Do you think that people will go back to Knapp after last week?
Probably not, but we should be. I think we should be less worried about him than Rory. I mean, just an illness, right? And just save it for the next week.
Yeah,
I think people are going to Knapp because 7,600 is really, really cheap.
Yeah.
Do you think more people will go to Knapp or Straka at the same price? Because Straka seems like he's going to be very popular as well.
Yeah, and Straka definitely is the better fit in terms of just like what people perceive as being necessary at Sawgrass. So I think that's a really tough one to answer. I think if you ask Knapp versus almost anybody else in the 7K range, I'd probably say Knapp's going to be more popular.
Okay, I made a new lineup, Tambo. You ready for this? It's going to win $1 million. Scheffler, Morikawa, Michael Kim, Joel Damon, Haotong, Pearson, Cootie. Like that's not it. Like you'd think that like Scottie with another expensive guy and 4 6K guys reads as bad, but this doesn't read as bad to me. I like all of these guys.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. I think you'll get 3 of them under 5%, which is huge. Most people are deciding between Scottie and Colin. So like we just talked about, like if they're going up, I think they're going all the way up and skipping Fleetwood and Rory, or they're starting at Colin Morikawa. There'll be balanced lineups that start below that too. I'm just saying I like the fact that you put the two of them together and just went with sort of your 4 that you were comfortable with down there, and it should still play. And obviously any of those guys, as long as they get through and make the cut, anything can happen over the weekend here. So if you get that 6 of 6, you could be in really good shape.
What do you make of a lineup like that, Blickle?
Well, to me, this is another reason why Scottie's going to be more popular this week, or should be more popular this week than he's been lately. Because one of the reasons why his ownership has been held down in the last few weeks, basically the last month or so, is because a lot of the time, in order to play Scottie, you have to eliminate all of the other expensive guys, everyone else 8,500 and up or something. And so if you're someone who has a ton of conviction on Morikawa or Henley or Siwoo Kim, like any of those guys in the last month, that has automatically meant, okay, I can't play Scottie if I want to play this guy. As you just showed with that lineup, this week you actually can get your favorite guy in that range alongside Scottie and still have it be a pretty solid build overall. And so my biggest takeaway is just, wow, the Scottie ownership actually could get over 30% this week and certainly should get 25, 30%. Whereas we've seen him really kind of hovering around 20% in single entries for most of the last month.
Well, I guess the other point to this is, how do you think people are feeling about Scottie at the moment based on his recent performance?
Not great, but I think everyone kind of realizes like it's still Scottie. He's still going to figure it out, and he's probably going to win a bunch this year. And the big thing is, if he's a perfect fit for any golf course in the world, it might be TPC Sawgrass. And I think people have, number one, seen that in his play, but also they recognize like, okay, this is a place where you need accuracy and iron play, and there's nobody better at either than Scottie.
Well, Tambo, there was no one better than Scottie, but now he can't hit an iron.
Yeah, I think it's funny, Pat. Like what you said, we haven't been on for a little while together, but doing the football shows together, not to switch gears completely, but just to note that some weeks people just have the money for Jamar Chase. Some weeks people just have the money for CMC, even though they like Bijan, who's below him, or they like a certain receiver who's less than Jamar Chase. They'll spend it. Here they have the ability to spend it and the reason to. And so I think Alex nailed it with his point of it. It literally doesn't matter. What have you done for me lately? This is still Scottie Scheffler. It's Scottie. If anything, I think more people think he's going to bounce back, and this is the course that he does it at. This is what we've been waiting for. Last week, though, looking like old Scottie, throwing balls into the water, whipping things, getting mad, talking to Ted. Like it didn't look great for him from that perspective. But again, it's Scottie Scheffler. People have the money, and he fits the builds. So I think they end up there.
Well, there are 2 different ways I want to spin this. I want to take a look at the rabbit hole for a second. Again, code Sawgrass gets us for you for $1 this week to week. So 7-day for $1 at the rabbit hole. But just taking a look at his stats right now, and we kind of go down the list and we see his round by round, whatever it might be. For the year, he's about break even on approach. Now, some of that is misleading because even as I spoke about with Jeff on the Monday show, that Saturday and Sunday at Bay Hill, he was just firing at every pin because he was trying to win. And then that led to a bunch of water balls. So there is some foolishness with some of those numbers, but this would put him down around 2020 levels. What he is doing this year is basically the 2022 Scottie Scheffler, when he won 4 times and still won the Masters. But it was a cut below what we saw the last 3 years. So I wouldn't expect him to be right around break even on approach the rest of the season. I'd expect him to go back and improve up to, even 0.96 at this point might be a bit far-fetched with some of the bad tournaments that he's had, but if he can get back up to 3/4 of a stroke per round on average for the year on approach, that means he's been having a really good from this point on. Blickle, it's the other stuff that worries me. It's just, I don't think this putting and chipping is sustainable.
It's almost certainly not, but as you mentioned, like I just think the approach is going to bounce back, and it doesn't have to bounce all the way back to 2025 or 24, 23 for him. It just has to get somewhere close to that, and I think it will. He's still like far and away our top projected strokes gained approach player in the field, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
Tambo, the other aspect that I was looking at, that instead of, like, I'm going to use him on DraftKings, I think that he's the rightful favorite, but he's 10-1 to miss the cut this week. If there's any course where bad iron play or just slightly off iron play can torch you, it would be here, wouldn't it?
It's definitely possible, yes, but it's crazy thinking like we just like the first couple times like outside the top 10, let alone 10-1 to miss the cut. But for the odds and for the spot, don't hate it, Pat, and you've done quite well with these bets over time and putting these things together. So won't go against you on it, but it's definitely tricky and tough to see with a guy like Scottie, especially at this course.
I agree. No one wants to step in front of it, but do you think in a 1 in 10 chances he can miss the cut here, Blickle, with the way if he continues to play like he's been playing?
We have him at 10.1%, which is a good bet at 10-1. So I actually see value on it.
Well, I was trying to compare, like, how do I get money on Scottie this week? Well, I can play him on DraftKings. That makes a ton of sense. When I'm doing my underdog drafts, I can take Scottie if I get the 101 pick. That's the most logical thing I can do. But I think his to miss the cut odds are better than his win odds at 3.5-1.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I'd rather bet the miscut odds. And I will say, like, we have one of the wider ranges of outcomes for him that we've had, because as his approach play continues to struggle, the uncertainty around his approach grows, and therefore the kind of uncertainty around his entire performance grows. And so, yes, he's a little bit more likely to miss the cut now, but his win odds aren't really changing for us because we know what the A game is. The A game is still the Scottie Scheffler A game. And so if he's got the A game, he's not a different player than he was last year.
No, but it doesn't seem like he's had his A game for a 4-round stretch here. That would end up becoming the issue. Not that he couldn't do it, but it seems less likely now than it felt like a certainty over the past 18 months.
Yeah, agree with that. The other thing I'd say there, though, is he doesn't necessarily need to have the A game for 4 days, because he's gotten so much better over the last few years at turning his C+ or B- game into a solid score. And that's like, we've talked about it a bunch. He's got the Spieth Magic Beans this year, and he's chipping in, and he's making 60-footers. Throw those out the window. Those aren't going to continue at this rate. He's still going to do it from time to time, but not at this ridiculous rate. But even beyond that, he's making so many more of those short putts that used to give him a ton of trouble. His short game is truly elite. Like, he might be second in the world now to Hideki Matsuyama in terms of the best short game. So even though the Magic Beans aren't going to continue, those skill sets really have been really solid for him. And he doesn't need to be the dominant approach player every single round. He just needs to have it from time to time.
I think you hit on something very interesting there, is that we've seen some of the bad rounds get the best of him so far this year, although he's almost always able to scrape it back. Tambo, this was always the thing with Tiger. When he just didn't have his stuff, somehow he was able to grind out an even par type day at a major and then come back the rest of the 3 days.
Yeah, definitely have seen it a ton in the past. And I also think too, Pat, something you've talked about a lot on these shows is with guys like, I'm dating us and taking it back, but like the Jason Day run, and then, does it trickle off from there? The Spieth run, and then it trickles off a little bit. And all these different golfers that we can name that did this. I think like some people are starting to lean towards that, but the majority are not, right? They're still saying this is still Scottie, still the best in the world. He's going to have something, and you got to be good to be lucky. And that's why when Scottie does it, when it's like, oh my God, how's he getting away with this? It's go back to the BetSport screen that you just had up. It's like, yeah, the approach down, the other stuff up. If that flips a little bit, it could be going because the approach game is back up, and now it's just Scottie's CB type game that's still doing enough for him. And then if he gets it back to any of those other levels, it's just going to be Scottie dominance all over. So it's really tricky to balance it, but it is still Scottie Scheffler, like we keep saying.
I'm more buying into the fact that the run is over, Blickle. And not the run is over, whereas he's not the best player in the world, because he still is. It's just the run was so prolonged for him is that it seems insane that it could ever go away. But even if it's just like a half stroke per round total, just across the board, that's such a significant drop off for how dominant he was, is that he's just not the best player by far anymore. He's the best of a group of like 7 guys instead of being by far the best.
Let's even just go back a month and remember, one of the first shows that we did this year together, and we were talking about Scottie versus non-Scottie and the without Scottie market. We were talking about the without Scottie market because he had won between 30 and 37% of his events in the last few years, and then he won the first event this year, and we thought, okay, here it goes again. But one of the things we talked about that week was like models and our simulations at FTN only had him at 25%. So it was like, okay, what's going on here? Why is the model showing 25% when he's been winning almost 35% of his events in the last few years? And it was for exactly this. It's because it's just this difficult to maintain that level of play that he had maintained for basically 3 years. It was just incredibly impressive. And so I'm really with you there in the sense that it's not even so much buying into the fact that he's playing worse so far this year. It's more just buying into the fact that nobody outside of Tiger has sustained the level of play that he did for the last 3 years for any longer than that. And if Scottie did it, he was going to be like one of 2 or 3 guys in the history of golf to do that.
Let's say he wins 4 times this year. He's going to make 22 starts. So he's going to win at an 18% clip, which is outrageous and really good, but half of what he did last year.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's a really, really good way to put it.
Yeah, and I don't think Ben Griffin's going to win 3 times this year again either. That's just my hot take. Although no one's going to use, it's funny that I landed in that Ben Griffin range when I was building that Scottie lineup earlier. I don't want to use Ben Griffin right now. I don't think anyone wants to use Ben Griffin. Tambo, is he the perfect guy to use?
I don't know, man. I was with you on the first statement. It's not like any of us want. We all landed there and we're like, well, you can leave $800 on the table. You can go down a little bit. You can just use Cam Young. None of us said you should just play Ben Griffin for $8,300. So maybe he gets us. Maybe he's the guy that gets us this week, Pat.
But because I'm trying to figure out the best approach to constructing these lineups, and I know I have to use, just because I use the guys that I like every year at this tournament, Alex, and I lose. So I feel like I need to pull the Costanza and just use the guys that I don't like.
It's hard. This tournament, it's something I've talked about in the past. Like we often, I think, mistake the 2 parts about predicting a player. And the first is like, can we identify the center of the player's distribution, his median outcome? And that we can do very well at Sawgrass. This is a very predictable course in that regard. However, it's also a course where the distribution is significantly wider than most courses because this place just ramps up the variance with the wind, with all the water, with the really difficult green complexes. Like, most courses, you miss the green. Okay, you're either getting up and down or you're not getting up and down and making bogey. Here, there are lots of places where you can really struggle around the green and end up walking away with a 7. And you're like, what the hell just happened to my guy? Why was he playing ping pong across the green? So it's just a really, really heightened volatility event. And then you also add in the fact that it's a massive field. And that also, ramps up the variance of, do they actually make cuts? And so it's hard. I wouldn't say that just because you haven't done well here in the past means you're never going to, but it's also not an indication that you shouldn't change something in the way that you approach the event.
Can you explain the difference between the greens at Sawgrass and what the players are going to deal with this week in terms of the construction, the levels, but mainly how receptive they are versus what we saw at Bay Hill? Because I don't think that these are, like, if you putted poorly or hit your irons poorly last week, I don't think that makes a difference for this week.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there are 2 main things to point out about these greens. I think the first is just how segmented some of them are, where think of, just think of 17, the most famous green, right? You've got the front segment, you've got the back left flat part, and then you've got the bottom right part. and the portions of the green have almost nothing to do with each other. You don't want to be going from one segment of a green to the next, which also makes approach. I think that's one of the reasons why approach play has so much signal here this week, because it's not just about like how accurate you are. It's also just how precise you are with your misses, how precise you are with your distance control, every aspect of that. But then the other thing about this is when it's so segmented like this, you get short game shots where the elevation change is massive. Maybe you're deep down in a bunker where the green is elevated, but then the green's also running away from you, things like that. So the range of shots that you get, even when you're close to the hole, is just unlike anything else that you get on tour, maybe other than like Augusta, where it's just such a unique around the green test. It's really fun to watch the guys, just not just try and execute those shots, but plan out what type of shot they even want to play. Because you're going to get a lot of instances where you put two guys in the exact same spot, they're actually going to make two entirely different choices of what type of shot they want to play, and that's not something we see often on tour.
So I would probably go like my first cross off. Not that these guys couldn't do it, Tambo, would be if you're bad around the greens, you're out for me.
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, that's kind of building like the skill set lineup, but again, it's all dependent on what your roster construction says. Like I'm on record a million times saying this, like, at the end of the day, it's not who you play, it's how you play them. I don't look as much as you guys do at these stats and breaking them down and building off of that. I'm looking mostly at the roster construction. So for example, earlier when you had the Scottie Morikawa lineup, I know it's aggressive, but you don't have any 7K guys in that lineup. It's not even just about fading the chalk under 7,900 as sort of the joke I said with like the idea of my note. It's true, but it's like you're not going to fade them all. But in that lineup, at least it made sense. You could flip that lineup that you just had on the screen from Scottie with Hao Tong and Cootie. You'd be able to get in like Siwoo, Henley, and Fitzpatrick and still fade the 7K range, but play 3 9Ks and a high 8K. I'm looking at the ranges here, Pat, and it's not just the 8Ks don't want to be played, but there's like some upper 8K and upper 7K guys that people like. If you go to the 7K range and the upper 7Ks, Bridgman, Brooks Koepka, decent finish last time out. Jordan Spieth looks like he's turned it around a little bit the last 3 times out. You've got boost your banker role with anchoring Akshay coming off the W at 7,700. Jake Knapp, 76. Well, people just, it's like maybe Knapp, maybe Straka, but everyone's landing below. Whether you go the Morikawa version or the Scottie version, you end up in the upper 6s and lower 7s. So we already know what's being ignored. And all these guys are going to be the guys that aren't the guys you love, Pat, like you said earlier when you're building, but they're going to be guys that people talk about but can't be about. What I mean by that is they'll be 5 to 12% owned. People are playing them, but not enough because they're stuck in another construction zone. And that's the issue. And so I'm looking to beat it that way, get your leverage that way in a tournament like this, because you can win from all angles at that point.
So if we do play around with that, we can end up with, I built a few lineups based on what you were just talking about. So the first one is take Morikawa out and just shift it to Siwoo, and then you can upgrade from like Cootie to someone like Noren. So you end up with one of those low 7K guys. That's one version of it. The other one is take out Scottie and put in Rory. And then you go from Scottie to Rory, keep Morikawa, but then you can get up to Nikolai Højgaard and Cam Young in this lineup to go with it. Or you can do what you just said, play 3 of the top guys instead. You can go Siwoo, Morikawa, Fitz. Then you can go like Brooks, Colley, McNeely. Or you can take that lineup, keep it as we had it with like Damon and let's say Michael Kim. And we'll throw in Michael Kim into that lineup because you have the 2 6s. Take out Colley, and then you have 9,100, and you can get Russell Henley. You can go Siwoo, Morikawa, Fitz, Russell Henley, and the 2 6K guys if you just want to fade that lower 7K area. Like I think most of the 7K chalk is going to be between 7,000, like 72 and 76. That's where all the popular guys are sticking out in my mind, at least.
Agreed. And that's what I was saying too. Like, again, it's not an all-star lineup because I get it's different times and, Brooks Koepka just one good result, etc. But just using that example of like, if you have a lineup with Akshay, Brooks Koepka, and Jordan Spieth, you can get a pretty good lineup after that. And if that's your lowest end tier, it's not fully balanced. Like you could say, if you go Spieth, Akshay, Koepka, you have 8,900. You could still get Morikawa in that lineup and then 2 8K guys that others maybe don't like that range as much. You'd be able to go to whoever you wanted in there, but just noting it, you'd have 8,500 left per. So giving an example like that gets you, what do you got here? What is it? Fitzpatrick?
Fitzpatrick, Morikawa, Fitzpatrick, Morikawa, Cam Young, Spieth, Bhatia, and Koepka.
Right. And most lineups won't have your lowest guy be 7,700. And I know people worry way too much about the play. Oh, Brooks Koepka, you guys are idiots. He sucks. One good result and you're back in on him. No, we're just looking at this build. That's it. Just showing you an example where you can have last week's winner, two major winners, Spieth and Brooks Koepka. Then you get two of the plays that people love in the 8Ks, which is Fitzpatrick and Cam Young. And you land on what people love at the top in Morikawa. It's just a little bit more unique build than what everybody else is doing, but you're not getting completely stupid. You would not be, maybe you wouldn't be thrilled with it if your portfolio doesn't have these guys, but it's not like that would be a crazy leaderboard if you saw that on Sunday. You'd be like, wow, it's pretty good golfers. I know all those guys. My dad would be thrilled watching this tournament play out like that. So giving you an example there.
Well, Alex, with Morikawa, are we going to work under the assumption that Morikawa is going to be the highest owned guy?
He should be up there for sure. He's super affordable. He's going to project well across the industry. He fits exactly what people are looking for in terms of accuracy over distance here. So yeah, he's going to be popular for sure.
So would this be a way to leverage Morikawa and get into a lineup where your total ownership might not get there? Is this the right type of build? Because if, let's say, because I think the Cam Young and Fitzpatrick are going to be pretty owned anyway, that to balance it out with your bottom three guys makes sense. Like, who are you getting to? Like, if you had these three guys in a lineup, who would be the must-haves? Like Straka, Knapp, and what does that leave you with? 8,000? It leaves you kind of in that zone. But I think this would be the perfect lineup to not use Straka and Knapp, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, if you're using Morikawa, if you're starting your lineup there, you want to take a risk on somebody in this 7 or 8K range that's going to be lower owned than the guys around them, but when they hit in a big way. So this is the type of lineup that I look to, my guys Burns and Rose. And if you're going to differentiate up top, then you don't go to Burns and Rose. You play more consistent, stable guys in that range. And so, yeah, that's just the way I like to think through lineups is, pick your spots to take your risks. And if you're starting with Morikawa and he's really popular, then that means the lower end, that's where you have to take the risks.
So yeah, we could even filter it out this way. If you did want to go to the low sevens, Tambo, you could go Morikawa, Cam Young, Fitz, go up to Rose, then go to like Kitayama and Pendrith.
Yeah, anything like that, I think is just going to be a little bit more unique because most of the Morikawa lineups, most of them will go to another 9K guy almost immediately. Right away, they'll just look at who their second 9K guy is. And most of them will have at most one of the 8K guys. And it's probably Fitzpatrick or Cam Young. Now you're able to put in Cam Young, Fitzpatrick, and an unowned guy in Justin Rose and still get two 7K guys that, you can pick down low. In your case, you put Kitayama and Pendrith, which is great. So yeah, I think anything like that is going to be a different build that you just don't see a ton of people on.
I do want to talk about ownership. I want to try to get some stabilization of where we're going to go with a lot of these guys. And it doesn't need to be precise right now. I want to get both of your blink test first leans on. Is this guy going to be a popular guy or a non-popular guy? And Blickle, we'll start with you because you're the guy that does all the ownership with this stuff. Most popular of like the most 15 guys. Like, who do you think that the chalk coalesces around? Scheffler, then the rest, and then it would be Morikawa. Who is Morikawa with the most? Is it Henley? Is it Fitzpatrick? Is it Siwoo? Is it Ludwig? Where are you thinking?
I could see Henley for sure. I could see Fitzpatrick, Siwoo. Those guys are going to be popular. And then, Cam Young, I think, is probably the biggest answer here. And then based on recent play and past success at this course, I think Minwoo Lee at 7,500 should be pretty popular as well.
So Morikawa, Cam Young, does that track for you as if we were doing the chalk build, Tambo? Like that would be the starting point for a lot of people?
Minwoo, Cam Young, Morikawa is the starting point. And then after that, it kind of looks like Siwoo could be up there for sure. And then whatever other cheap guy down low. I don't know if it's Berger that people go back to.
Ooh, see, so I think this is the interesting part here. So, Blickle, do you think it's like Straka, Knapp, and then see what you have left?
Yeah, I kind of do. Especially Knapp.
Because that's Siwoo. There's the lineup right there. Morikawa, Cam Young, Minwoo, Siwoo, Straka, Knapp.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And then I think, some like automatic variations would be you take one of Siwoo or Morikawa or Cam Young out, and you get Fitzpatrick and or Henley in, because those guys are kind of interchangeable, but they all kind of fit that, that same prototype of player. And so interestingly, like there is a bit of a discrepancy here where two of the really chalky guys as of now that we're expecting in the 7K range, Minwoo Lee, Jake Knapp, are long off the tee, and they're not quite the archetype of player that Morikawa and Straka and Siwoo and Henley and Fitzpatrick are. These shorter but really, really hyper accurate guys. And so it's almost interesting to think of them as being this popular, but man, just based on their play this season and the fact that both actually are driving it accurately as well, I do expect them to be chalk. But if you told me that you wanted to take Minwoo or Knapp out of this build and to get more guys in who are just like the hyper accurate type, I wouldn't totally argue.
Well, I don't think that I will submit this lineup because we're doing it on the show, Tambo, but I don't think that you can play this lineup in MMEs, because it's going to be you with like 200 people you're going to be playing 1v1 with everyone.
Yeah, it's a good cash game lineup for sure. It's like I said, it's going to be what people, for the balance. If you're not going to Scottie and you're starting with Cam, this is exactly what we said earlier when we were looking at it, that people are going to immediately look to put a second guy in. And if it's not Siwoo, it's honestly probably down to Fitzpatrick, and then go somewhere else with the money, from there. Because I think realistically, Cam Young, Morikawa, and Minwoo are definitely the three guys that people are very interested in right out of the gates.
I see. I agree with you. The thing is, even if, let's say, you took Siwoo down to, and I think the next popular guy is Henley, Fitzpatrick, and then to a lesser extent, it's going to be Ludwig at $8,700. There's just nowhere to go with those savings for anyone that anyone likes. Like, what are you going to do? You're not getting off of Minwoo, so the most you could go up is like $400 from Straka or Knapp, and then you're back in that range that no one likes. Cantlay, Thomas, Bridgman, Koepka, Day, Spieth, Akshay, McNeely, Harris English. Like, all those guys are going to be significantly less popular than the ones that we used.
Yeah, the alternative is to take Straka and Knapp out and put one down, one up. You know what I mean? Like, if you take both those guys out, that's where it lands. So what is it if you take those two out and just put Fitzpatrick?
So let's try this for a second. So, Alex, what if we just go Straka, Knapp out? I bet on Straka to win, so I don't need to play him on DraftKings, although if he wins, then I probably would need him. I would rather go like Nikolai Højgaard and Jason Day, let's say. Now I feel like this lineup's getting closer to playable.
Yeah, I like that thought. Another thing you could do is you could take out Siwoo and Cam and play both of Henley, Fitzpatrick, and then we're going to have to take one of these guys down, but I think we'll be able to take them down to something that we still like.
Henley, Fitzpatrick. Well, I would be good with taking, like, instead of taking Day up to 87, we can take Day down to 73.
Yeah.
And I don't want to play Clark Scott makes sense. Rasmus makes sense to me. Noren makes a ton of sense. So does Rye. So does Pendrith. I'm not playing Kiefer, Berger, Hitsatsune, and Connors. Actually, I really like as well from the bottom here. Of those bottom guys, like this range that we're seeing up on the screen now, who do you think is the one that people go to in this bottom range? Is it Noren? Because I really hope it's not.
Man, that is a really tough one to answer. I don't think any of these guys are going to be that popular.
Okay, good. So pick who you like, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Take your favorite. And to me, I think it would be Adam Scott, unless you wanted to get Nikolai back to either Straka or Knapp, in which case, then I'd go Noren.
I think Noren is objectively my favorite guy from this range, Tambo.
Yeah, I think Noren will pick up steam as the week goes on, but like Alex said, not all of them can get owned. So it's not like he's going to be anything too crazy, I don't think, at 7,200. But if people do lean into this AM tee time, he has that as well. So maybe it's something there. But so does Berger, and so does Pendrith, and so does other guys down below. So I think you're fine just picking who you want. And in this lineup, particularly, I think it's even more fine. I mean, really, Morikawa and Lee are the main two, maybe Fitzpatrick. But after that, you've got enough variation that you can get different with whoever you want.
Well, the other variation that you can do here, Alex, is do you think any 6K guy gets like a significant amount of ownership where you're like, man, let's just not play that guy? Nico,
no.
Maybe? Nico's betting odds went from 225 to 1 to 90 to 1. And I bet him. I bet him at 200, but I don't think I want to play him here on DraftKings, if that makes any sense, as my lowest guy. Like, yeah, at Cognizant, that made a ton of sense to me. I think he is such a better bet for top 10 and to win than to play in your DraftKings lineup, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what you're saying is if he's got it, then
you're
going to get this huge payout in the outright, and that's good enough. And he also has a low floor, so that's what's taking off of him on DraftKings. I don't have an issue with that take, but I don't think he or anyone else in the 6K range is going to get enough ownership that in and of itself is a reason to fade him. You have to have an actual argument against the player himself.
Tambo, do you think that's too cowardly of a idea that I just had about Nico, that if I do think that he has a chance of that sort of upside, he is exactly who I should be trying to play here?
I think you're looking, even when Nico won a different event altogether. I get that. I'm just saying the idea of that it's, what his ceiling is, and therefore you're playing him for that outcome. Now if you're betting it already and you're fine with that, you say, I've got him this way, so I'm already happy to make money on him there. I'm fine with it. But yeah, I'm fine putting those guys into the player pool. It's no different than the lineup you just had up. You could play Damon and Ludwig instead of Hogard. Take out Hogard and put, I think, your boy Damon down low.
We can put in Damon, but what we could do is just bring, we can't get there. We need to find.
Well, you can get there, yeah, because now you just got to go back to Norin, right? Take Hogard down to Norin. Leave the money.
Yeah, so we can go back to Norin, so we can throw in Fleet. See, I think Fleetwood might end up be shaping a. This is why I really want to talk through some of these builds. None of them include Fleetwood. Fleetwood might just end up being the best play here. He or Xander.
To me, Xander's the guy that I think I'm going to be on up here. I was on him last week. He couldn't have played worse and still was pretty good for the event. It was just a really weird week where he never got anything going, but he also was solid enough that it was a good score by the end of things. And really, if he hadn't driven it into the water on 6, I think he would have had a good Sunday as well. So I like Xander, but the thought works for both of them. And I like this pivot that Tambo's making too, because it's getting you just such unique combinations of these players, since no one's going to be using Damon.
Yeah, so Fleetwood, Morikawa, so you have 3 guys above 9,000. If you have 3 guys above 9,000 and 1 guy in the low 6s, Tambo, I feel like you fill in that sandwich with whoever you want.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just what you said earlier, and it's also now Damon has to be kind of your one guy. Sometimes it's funny because he ends up being the best guy, and the others, screw you. You're I can't believe Morikawa is the one that screwed me. But the concept is there, and it's not like the Scottie lineup that needed 4 6K guys. Not that they couldn't. I'm just saying that makes sense. And then also leaving the $100. It's not even the biggest thing in the world to play Castillo here, but just knowing that Castillo is going to be in more Scottie and more Morikawa lineups, because if people don't go it or they put them all together like we had earlier, there's tons of ways that can be used. So just building something like this, I think, lets you get away with the popular Minwoo Lee, or even if and Morikawa, of course, but even if Norin gets a little bit of steam, it's a much different build. And then people will be even when people do go to Fleetwood, they'll usually be deciding between Fleetwood and Morikawa. Be well, I'm going to pivot up and play Fleetwood instead, which is fine. I think that's good move in some cases, but we talk about it all the time, Alex. You can play those guys together as a way to get different as well. And now you're automatically different, but you still have the Morikawa play that everybody likes within your builds.
When we return,
agreed. And Pat, to your point on Nico, I think the way that I would answer that question of is he just the guy that you should be playing because you like that upside? I think the answer is kind of yes, in the sense that if you're going to someone in that range, you should be looking for someone in that range who actually has the upside to contend and to give you a really high score. If he's too risky for you, it's not a pivot to someone around him that has a quote unquote better floor. None of them have a great floor in that range. So if you're looking for more floor, then you want to do that through roster construction and a more balanced approach where the lowest guy in your lineup is, the Norin type or Jake Knapp or someone like that. So if I think that's the way that I would answer that question. It's less about Nico versus, Finau or Michael Kim or Hoey. And it's more what type of lineup as a whole do I want?
When we return, I'm going to put Blickle on the spot to come up with a strategy instantly for something he's never seen. Plus, we're going to break down more of that 9K and 8K range to see if we can build some unique lineups for GPPs, both 3-max single entry and in the Millionaire Maker. Stay tuned. Look, I'll be straight with you. We talk all the time about getting better at work, sports, in life, whatever it might be. But most guys ignore the one thing that actually drives all of it: your head. Therapy isn't a weakness, it's a tool. I've seen it help guys deal with work stress, family stuff, breakups, addictions, whatever it might be. Just getting unstuck when everything feels heavy. The problem? It's usually a pain to get started. Long wait lists, huge costs, total hassle, you know the deal. That's why Rula is different. Rula makes therapy simple, affordable, and fast. They work with most major insurance plans, and sessions can cost as little as $15. You answer a few quick questions, they match you with a licensed vetted therapist that actually fits what you need, and you can be talking to someone as soon as the next day. No weeks of waiting, no guessing if you pick the right person. If you've been putting this off, stop! Go to Rula.com/Mayo and get started today. That's RULA.com/Mayo. Once again, that's Rula.com/Mayo. Take the first step. Take control of your mental health. So there is about to be a new development in the Mayo household. As many of you know, a new baby is arriving soon. In fact, it may already be here by the time that you're listening to it. That's how close we are. Which meant suddenly I was looking around my house and realizing that I am wildly unprepared for an extra human being to be living here. And honestly, Wayfair has been a lifesaver. When you're getting ready for a baby, you realize that you need everything. New bedding, storage, furniture, things to organize the nursery, things to organize literally every other room in the house because it's about to get taken over by baby stuff. The other kids, they hate this. Wayfair makes it ridiculously easy because it's basically a one-stop shop. We grabbed new storage solutions, some nursery pieces, and even some refreshed parts of the living room so it doesn't look like a tornado of baby gear just exploded everywhere. The best part is you can find stuff that actually looks good without spending a fortune. If you're getting your home ready for a new season or a new baby, Wayfair has everything you need. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. If you're like me, you love coffee, but sometimes coffee doesn't love you back. One too many cups and suddenly you're jittery, your brain's moving at 1,000,000 miles a minute, and you're wondering why you drank it in the first place. That's why I started trying Mudwater's new low-calf coffee blend. It actually tastes like real coffee, made with organic Arabica beans, but it's only got 45 milligrams of caffeine, plus things like L-theanine and functional mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps. So you still get that focus and energy without all the jitters or the crash late in the day. They also have an original blend, which is more of a coffee alternative with cacao, chai, turmeric, and mushrooms if you want something even lighter. Everything is organic, non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, no sugar added, and honestly, it's just a smoother way to start the day without feeling wired. If you want to try it out, head to mudwater.com and grab a starter kit. Right now, listeners get up to 43% off your order, free shipping, and a free rechargeable frother when you use code MAYO. That's MUDWTR.com, code MAYO for up to 43% off. And when they ask how you heard about them, make sure you tell them the Pat Mayo Experience sent you. We are back on the Pat Mayo Experience. I'm running a special players pool this week. Make it easy as possible for people. It's the 5x5. It's over at fanball.com. I got the link down in the description if you want to play. This is the PME contest. There's about 150 spots. It's $20 to play. Some flat payouts. We're really going to try to get this on the go for the Masters to make it easy on everyone. But the rules are very simple, guys. You get $15. You got your 5, 4, 3, 2, and $1 players. You can allocate that $15 any way you want. You want 2 5s? You can do that if you can squeeze everyone in. Blickle, you're on the spot. You are the game theory man. What is the optimal strategy?
This is just like a really simplified version of DraftKings, honestly. So it's the same game, just much more limited field, different pricing. So find the guys who really stand out in their quote unquote price range at their price. And so at first glance, like, man, there's I think Scottie at $5 is probably the best value, to be honest. And then I think Hovland or Fitzpatrick really stand out at $3. Cantlay stands out at $2.
Cantlay, really?
Yeah, just from a pure projection standpoint. If you wanted to say Knapp or Straka for a little bit more upside, because we haven't seen the upside in forever for Cantlay, and you can see that like in the odds as well. then I wouldn't have an issue with it. But that also might mean that Cantlay's the undervalued guy. He's still projecting quite well from a strokes gain standpoint. And then, down at $1, you know who I'm going with. I'm going with my guy, Justin Rose, down there. So, that leaves, let's see, 7 for the last two guys. So,
yeah. So you can go a 4 and a 3. You can go a 5 and a 2. You can go, Tambo, when you just think about looking at this, how contrarian do you want to get with the lineup, knowing that it's almost like you said, like a DraftKings lineup where there's going to be the chalk plays? Like, is this a spot where you'd be like, oh, give me Goddard and Akshay?
No, I'm just literally taking values. Like I said, Scottie's the same price as everybody else. So I'm just taking Scottie to start, and then I'm building it out from there. I kind of like the $3 range though. So I would probably have, Scottie, 6, 7, 8 is Fitzpatrick.
7.
Then I would go Akshay. That's 11. And then I'd probably take what do I got?
You got
I
$4 left.
Yeah, I'd probably just take Sepp and Cantlay.
Sepp and Cantlay. Okay, see, that makes a ton of sense.
Something like that. There's a ton of different variations, obviously, still, but like Alex said, it just sort of simplifies it. But you got to look at the value perspective and what you can get from it, plus the potential upside and everything there. Like what he said with Cantlay is a prime example. Like that, do we really like him that much? Probably not. You could put in like Bobby Mack or Knapp or something like that, but for the $2, seems like a pretty good value. So I'll take Cantlay there for $2.
So you know what I should have done right off the bat is asked you how the scoring works. Are we going for fantasy points here? Are we going for money earned? What's the?
It is basically like DraftKings scoring.
Okay, so yeah, then yeah, Cantlay's a really good play. If it was money earned, then we'd want everyone that we think can actually go win the thing. But yeah, so I really like this one, and the only surprise to me there from Tambo was taking Akshay over Hovland.
Yeah, I'm gonna ride the hot hand. I have a theory. We didn't get to it, and obviously, a lot of jokes and made fun of the anchoring thing. I actually love Akshay as a player and a golfer, and I think it's just funny that it came up. So I made some jokes with it on X, but I think Akshay's the man. And I think one thing I'll say is it reminds me of Goddard at the Scottish Open last year. Remember the next week out at the Open? Oh, there's no way he can do well again this week. He just won the Scottish Open. And that's always been a thing. No way golfers can do good back-to-back weeks. But like people are acting like this is some crazy breakout. It's his biggest win for Akshay, but acting like we didn't know this guy was going to be a star since the minute he came out. Like this guy has always looked like he's going to be a great golfer, and I'm fine with that. So I'm fine going back to Akshay this week. I actually like Brooks in that range too. Hovland's fine, but I like Fitz, Akshay, Brooks would probably be my 3 in that range, even over the popular Minwoo and how good Victor Hovland is for upside, etc. So, but Hovland fits the Cantlay bill for $1 more. Makes sense.
So Blickle, do you think that, because I want people to play in this, again, fanball.com, or just get the Fanball app. It's where you can make your one and done picks as well instead of having to go to the site. It's all in that app. This is the PME contest. I want to blow this out for the Masters and just have it like as a pool. Maybe we'll change the payouts to make it super top heavy instead of a flatter payout like this one is. But if you go support it, we can make it big and we can really come up with some cool ideas for the Masters. So please go do that right now. But when an average person looks at this, they're going to take 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1. That's generally how like random people are going to do this. Is there like any sort of just strategy of like, oh, you should always be using 2 $5 players, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do think there's something to that where, like, so for example, if you take Fitzpatrick, then the conditional ownership of Akshay with Fitzpatrick is going to be lower than the conditional ownership of, let's say, Cantlay or Knapp or Straka with Fitz, just because of what you just said. The people are going to be like predisposed to taking one guy in each range, and you don't have to do that. And I think where this type of contest can be really fun is just like one and done. This is the type of thing you can get your friends interested in, your dad interested in.
That's why we created it. That's why I want to blow it out for the Masters, because it's just an ease, because everyone's always looking for a Masters pool. That this version of it, I think, is the easiest way to do it, rather than just have, here are 5 names with a box, check one next to it and move on. And at least there's a little bit more strategy to it, but it's very easy to comprehend. You pick 5 guys.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing I'm noticing is if you look at the fantasy points per game next to each guy's name, it is lower, a lot lower than DraftKings scoring. So I'm just making a note to myself to actually like make sure that I go look at the scoring and see what's up there.
Let's see. Points. Hole in 1, 5, Albatross 13, Eagle. I think that's per round is
Oh,
what.
okay. So yeah, then actually, yeah, this looks extremely similar to DraftKings.
Yeah.
The position bonuses are slightly different, but they're very close. So yeah, this is basically just DraftKings scoring.
Yeah, and even at birdie streak, it's a multiplier for the birdie streak.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the birdie streak points are equal to the longest consecutive stretch of holes must be at least 3. So instead of a bonus of 3, it could be a bonus of 4. Like who was it last week? Made like 8 birdies in a row. It was someone in Puerto Rico. It was like, good Lord. It may have been like Jimmy Stanger. It's like, so if he makes like 7 in a row, you not only get the 7 in a row bonus, like for the birdies, you get an extra 7 points instead of just an extra 3.
That's cool. I like that. And it seems like then you also get a bonus if it's just 2 in a row. So honestly, like that's probably a more equitable bonus than what DraftKings does, because it's that binary nature of you either get the streak bonus or you don't can really swing things, and so I kind of like that.
So yeah, fanball.com, the Fanball app, it's free to download. It's $20 per entry. You can play up to 5 times in the Players one this week. And we're going to try to tell as many people as possible because we want to get a really big one on the go for the Masters that, like Blickle said, your dad can play in a lot like the one and done where it's easy to use, but there is a ton of upside if you can end up winning. So please go do that right now. Let's get back to DraftKings and try to figure out this 9 and 8K range, because I think this is where tournaments are going to be one Tambo, and I need to know how to start. And there's a couple guys I want to run by you, mainly Chris Gotterup at $9,200, who I don't think he and Hideki are guys that people want to play, but I feel like people are looking like they're too expensive.
Yeah, they're just not going to get to them as much. When you've got Morikawa above, Siwoo Kim, and then Henley and Fitzpatrick below, all those guys in between are overlooked. Blickle and I talked about Xander last week, and so he's another guy that even before I got to Hideki or Gotterup, I'd be getting to. I actually loved the Sunday that he had selfishly for this tournament coming up, starting this week, because he didn't really do much on Sunday and made it look worse than it kind of was. So I like him quite a bit as a pivot off of Morikawa, or you can use him with Morikawa. I think that's the guy that you could go to there. So yeah, I'm not going to be getting to as much Matsuyama and Gotterup here in this range. It would probably even be Hovland ahead of them as well at 9,100 to Alex's point previous.
I like Gotterup the most of the Xander's probably better, but I guess my question, Alex, is if I'm going to use Gotterup, let's say I want to use Gotterup, and I like him better than Hovland, so I'm going to use him over Hovland. I'll go head to head with Tambo on this one. Do I then use him with a Fleetwood or Matsuyama, or is he someone to build with Siwoo and Fitzpatrick? Like, is he that type of guy? Like, do you go chalk guy, then Gotterup to mix it up? Or is this a great opportunity to start 2 high-end guys that are on the lower end of the spectrum for ownership, and then I can build out any way I want?
I think one of the best kind of arguments to play Gotterup is that his really low ball flight works really well in wind, and it looks like it's going to be windy. And so I think what I would do if I were building a Gotterup lineup, I'd care a little bit less about, the exact ownership of the guys up top. And I'd care more about, okay, I want this lineup to tell the story that it's ball striking in the wind. That's going to be the test this week. And so who can I go to that is proven that they're very good in wind, particularly from a ball striking standpoint? And so that honestly might be Rory. And it might be Shane Lowry. And so, things like that, that's how I'd build anything with Gotterup.
Well, there are 2 ways we can figure this out. We bring up the rabbit hole right now. Once again, $1, betspertsgolf.com, code Sawgrass, get you it for the week. You can filter by conditions, and you can just go down to the wind. You can go moderate, 10 to 17, over 18. The thing that I like to look at here, and Blickle, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, is if you go down to the miscellaneous metrics, you can find apex height on shots. So you can find the guys that hit the ball very low from the ground. So like Gerard is one of those guys. Which one do you think is a better idea of who could be good in the wind? Because one of the things I don't like about just looking at like winds, here's how these guys played in over 18 miles per hour. That could be from any course.
It can be from any course. And what I like to do is I want to see how guys play compared to their baseline in wind. So I'm not just looking at the raw strokes gained. I want to compare that raw strokes gained to their baseline strokes gained. And the other thing that I like doing is I really like the feature of looking at the percentage of rounds where they're gaining strokes, because I think that can tell you a little bit of a better story, especially when you're working in small samples where, one awful round is going to skew the average strokes gain that you look like. One fantastic round can skew it as well. Whereas if you're someone like Shane Lowry and you're consistently great in the wind and you're gaining strokes in something like 80 to 90% of your windy rounds, that tells a much better story that, yeah, you actually know what you're doing in those conditions. You're going to be able to consistently produce good results in those conditions. So that's my approach. I like the apex height. The one issue I have with apex height is it doesn't tell you the story of who can hit multiple types of shots very well. It tells you more about what the player prefers to do. But there are guys who can only hit it high. There are guys who can only hit it low. And then there are guys who can hit the high shot if they need or the low shot if they need, and work it both ways if they need, things like that. And so apex height is just a little bit of an incomplete story.
So, okay, let's try this then. Let's go to strokes gained. We'll go to rounds gained. Do you think tee to green, ball striking, or strokes gained total is the better way to look at this?
I want to look at strokes gained total because putting in the wind is a very difficult variable. And one thing you can look at is just like the stance width of a player. Generally speaking, guys with wider stances are going to put better in the wind because it really is a thing that in really windy conditions, being even slightly off balance because of the wind is really, really, really going to hurt your putting. And guys with wider stances like Hideki are more predisposed to putting well in those conditions.
So we're not getting a ton of, 12, I guess Vince Whaley has played 19 rounds. How big do you think, cause we're dealing with short samples. So we went to rounds gained. I just did total for the past 12 months. Now I'm doing total in the wind for the past 12 months. So this is the way that you would maybe the best way to look at it when we look at rounds gained.
So the first thing that I would do is I'd zoom out to a wider time frame. I know it seems crazy, but I'd go like last 3 years.
Okay.
You want more data, and the things that make someone good in the wind, the ability to shape the ball, the ability to flight the ball, the ability to putt in the wind, like that's not changing from one year to the next. So we are pretty much just getting the same signal if we go 3 years, something like that. And so, yeah, I think that works well.
All right, let's try this. Let's just see what it spits us out. So you can see the discrepancy between all rounds, and then these are the last 3 years rounds in the wind, windy conditions. So Scheffler remains untouched. Rory goes from 4 to 2 into the wind. Tommy goes from 2 to 8 in the wind, but these are the best players overall. Guys that just played the best in the wind in the sample that we looked at. Scheffler, Rory, Lowry, Morikawa, Connors, Hideki, Fox, Fleetwood, Day, and then you get Collie, huge jump. Straka, huge jump. And then Hoagie, huge jump. Shockingly enough, 3 guys that played awesome at the Players last year.
Yeah. This is I think this is a strong list. No surprise that Nikolai's there either. He just rips the ball, penetrating ball flight. So, I like this list quite a bit.
Tommy, Siwoo, Harry Hall, Patrick Cantlay, Whaley, Adam Scott, Ludwig. Akshay's about the same. Although it's funny, Tambo, that people really dog on Akshay because he bends the ball so much in the wind, forgetting that most of his Corn Ferry wins came in the windiest conditions possible.
Yeah, I loved the afterthought too, that when he said, like, my old caddy said there was no way I could ever win here. And then he gets the job done last week with Joe on the bag. So that was nice to see for him as well, that side of it.
Other guys that make a substantial leap: Stevens, Sungjae, Davis Thompson, Michael Brennan, and Mark Hubbard. I think Michael Brennan is a very interesting conversation to have here because, I was on him last week in Puerto Rico. He just couldn't make a putt all weekend when it came down to it, but the driving was still really, really good. That if we've seen driver usage go up here, Alex, over the years, wouldn't the longest, straightest guy in the field be someone you should consider?
Yeah, to a degree. It's still a place where distance is just not that predictive of success at all. Where it does help is there are a number of holes where a lot of the field is going to be dialing back off the tee, and someone as accurate as Brennan, someone as accurate as Scottie, like they're able to push driver all the way to the end of the fairway, give themselves a really scoreable wedge opportunity when other guys are hitting 7 irons into a tough green, or they're missing the fairway and now they're chipping out to the fairway and trying to get up and down with a wedge for par. So there are those instances where you can really gain, but as you mentioned, like It's not just a one event sample now that with the putter with Brennan. It just seems like his putting, his short game, not quite ready, and the chance to spike in the way you need to contend probably not as high on at a place like TPC Sawgrass as it is other places.
That makes sense. Tambo, do you think that building in a set like the one we just looked at does make some sense?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Like I said, it's the old Raza effect, right? Like building a skill set where you're kind of picking that and going with it. And in something like this with the wind and all of that, you can try and piece it together and combine it. So that model you just had, you could combine it and just build lineups based off of that. Or you could then go like a step further and say, okay, I want to build lineups with that also are in the certain wave, right? Because you already know they're good in the wind. So even if they are in the alternate wave, you could do that. Or you could flip it the other way and say, okay, if the wind pops up or gets gusty, I still want them in the better, quote unquote, better wave, but it's fine that I know that they could battle if they got to get through. Also, what if it gets windy over the weekend? I could get them through because of the better wave. And then if and when the wind picks up, I could be good there as well. So it's little things like that you can do to try and work your sets around, certain concepts or ideas.
So I filled it out with the guys that ranked the best in the both category here. Goddard, Lowry, Nikolai, Siwoo, Connors, Ben Griffin. Alex, that's the lineup.
Yeah, I like that. And I love the point that the Tambo just made too, by the way, of, just what happens if you get to the weekend and they still need to play well in the wind. And it does look like both Saturday and Sunday will be breezy. So I like that call a lot.
So last thing that I want to go to, Tambo, is there anything else you want to add about these top end guys, be it Xander versus Goddard or playing them both together, or maybe even attacking this mid 8K range where just no one is going to be? Like if you end up with a lineup of Cantlay, Rose, Ben Griffin, and then you can do whatever else. Like no one's going to have those three guys in a lineup.
Yeah, I think that's where, people step out of line a little bit. I always talk about like, you're driving down the street and like, if you get the little bumper guards on the sideline where it's like, okay, you're going into the ditch, get back on the road. Well, some people, get to Justin Rose and Griffin and then they just drive it into the ditch because they go 4 more plays that are all like that. It's like you can have a good balance of both. I think the most interesting thing to me this week, Pat, is the constructions of what's missing. You and I, you used to do this all the time, talking about in-betweeners, right? Where you mentioned the Hidekis and the Godderups would be examples of that. When you get to the 8K range, it's the Lowry, the Burns, the Cantlay, the Griffins. Okay, there's a few in there, Bobby Mack, right? And then the upper 7s, the Batias, the Spieths, the Days, the Kepkas, the Bridgmans. Those are the guys. You don't need to put them all together. It's saying if you could find a lineup that lands in those ranges, you're going to be different than those around. And yeah, then pick your poison or whatever you're going off of for your model or your set or whatever you're building, wave, anything. But I'm looking at it from that perspective this week because there's only so much that you can do when the field's this strong.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, how would you fill this one out? Because I'm good with taking, do you know who I don't know why I keep liking this guy so much, Blickle, but we've talked about him a bunch because of his driving and how much it's improved, is Harris English, who in theory should be really good at the Players' Championship.
Yeah, I really like English this week. Outstanding in terms of bogey avoidance, which obviously comes into play at Sawgrass. You just have to be, really, really precise about where you miss and consistently putting yourself in good positions, things of that nature. So I like the English call. Yeah,
you could go English, Rose, Griffin, Corey Connors, Xander, and Russell Henley.
This might be my favorite lineup that we've built so far today.
It feels, Tambo, pretty... I mean, it's the guys that people want to use but won't use together, and Ben Griffin.
Yeah, when you've got Griffin and Rose already, you can kind of do whatever you want, so it's fine. But there's nothing wrong with this. It still fills out with 2 9s, 2 8s, 2 7s, but it's not the most popular. Like right out of the gates, English would be Minwoo Lee in a lot more spots. Ben Griffin would be dropped down to Cam Young in a lot more spots. You can almost go Cam Young and then Rose up to Fitzpatrick. You just got to find $200 more, or you could go Xander up to Morikawa at that point. So that's what more people are doing, and that's where you've already got a different build with what you had there. So I'm fine with anything like that where you're getting a little bit different, but not, like I said, completely driving it off the ditch altogether.
Yeah, the Rose Griffin combo, Blickle, turns into Ludwig Cam Young very quickly.
Yeah, it's a very easy pivot that you can make. One thing I'll say about that though is one thing I like about this lineup, English, I think, is a good example of this. English is a pivot off of the chalkier guys in the range, Straka, Minwoo, Knapp, but even though he's more contrarian, he's not like some super risky play because he, like, if anything, his strength is how good his floor is. So making that like extra pivot there, that's not the type of move that I think makes the lineup too contrarian or anything like that. So if we were to change anyone, I think that pivot off of Rose and Griffin, who you can say are higher risk guys, even though they're contrarian. That maybe makes a little bit more sense, and finding the right balance between risk and upside throughout the lineup.
Yeah, the move you can make here is probably just take Rose down to Cam Young, and then you could move Henley into Hideki.
Well, it would be Griffin down to Cam Young and Xander up to Morikawa, and you could still get away with it because you have Harris English, Rose, Henley, like Connors. You can still get away with it for sure.
Do you think that Connors will end up being as popular? I don't know if he's going to be popular or not, because now we're back into, quote, fake major season. Oh, it's Corey Connors time. And he actually started striking the ball again last week.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be as popular. Alex, I don't know. What do you think? At 7,100, it just seems like a lot of these guys have to go at least somewhat. Sorry, I should say a lot of them should at least somewhat be kept in check.
Yeah, I think he's another one of those guys who fits in that category of, like, he might be one of the more popular in his range, but even if he is, it's not going to be that high of a number. But the fact that he did just spike with the irons again, and it was only 3 bad events of iron play, and he was awesome at the Sony as well, I think that's enough to make people go, oh yeah, Corey Connors is really, really good at $7,100. So I think he'll be one of the more popular guys in his range without getting anywhere near an ownership that makes us automatically fade him.
2 last things. One, Akshay for your call. If you need some more ammo, Tambo, I've been talking about the TPC Southwind crossover with the players, and just because they're elevated events, a lot of water, a lot of similar names pop up. Good for Justin Rose. I watched Akshay go pump the field on the first day there. Shot like -8 as a first round leader. So good news for Akshay. Good vibes on that sort of course when it's going. 2, we didn't bring up Ricky Fowler, and I think Ricky's going to be popular.
Well, we didn't bring him up, so maybe he won't be popular, and maybe that's my take. But 7,400, he could be. He could be one of those guys. But to me, it would almost fit what Alex just said. Everywhere you look, there's somebody like, yes, Ricky 74, but you've got Straka, Knapp, Lee, Kitayama, English, all guys there. Gerard just below him, who people like last week. So it's just really tough to see with this range being spread out like it is to see anybody be like 18 to 20% or anything high like that.
Do you think there's an influence of casual players coming in, Blickle, seeing, hey, Ricky was on TV all last week. Hey, I know Ricky Fowler. I don't know who this Min Woo Lee guy is. Let me take Ricky instead.
It's possible. I will say, like, that's one of the things that where I do see a larger difference in single entry and MME ownership when we get to the majors and the players, because those casuals aren't in the single entry that I'm in and trying to project ownership for. So you don't see any of that effect in those contests, but maybe you do an MME contest. But those casuals also, they're, even though there is a large influx of them, they're playing usually one lineup at a time, maybe 5 or 10, something like that. And they're still drowned out by all the DFS guys who are playing 150. So I don't think it moves the needle too much in any direction.
So the Ricky line, I was trying to figure out the chalk Ricky build, and I actually came up on a lineup I think I like. It's Xander and Morikawa, Straka and Young, Minwoo and Fowler.
Yeah, plenty of room to get away with that when you've got the setup that you've got, because Morikawa and Young will be popular, and even maybe Straka, but Straka gets kept in check by some of the others. I think Xander alone being in that just right out of the gate will separate you instantly, because most would be picking between, and most just going Morikawa, but most picking between, not playing them both together.
Yeah, and the move would be you could take the Straka Xander combo and make that into Ludwig Henley or something like that, like somewhere right around that range.
Yeah, you could change Straka Young to English Cantlay.
Yeah, or even Nikolai or someone who's down there. Okay, Blickle, should I bet Nikolai? I've been betting him every week. Do I just keep betting him?
I haven't bet him yet this week, but he's on the list of guys that I'm still considering. So maybe we should just make the plunge together.
I'm seeing what is the number here? Nikolai, 140 to 1 with 3 places.
Oh God.
Yeah, we got it. And Blickle, you're never wrong. Just early, buddy. This is the one.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, let's do that.
All right. That will do it for the DraftKings show. Playing that 5x5 contest as well. BetSportsGolf.com. Hit the description. $1 for the week if you use code Sawgrass. And the free newsletter is down there with all the final plays, ownership, everything coming out on Wednesday afternoon. Tambo, tell the good people what's going on at Ship It.
Yeah, lots going on as usual. ShipItNation.com. You can check it out. Add me on X at Totag and Tambo if you want to hit me up there. Get you 50% off your first month over at Ship It Nation.
Blickle, FTNFantasy.com.
Yeah, one of the big announcements this week is I think we'll have contest sims ready to go this week, and I'm also going to debut a high stakes ownership. So we've had MME and single entry ownership for quite some time now over at FTN, and our single entry ownership has really led the industry in accuracy, and now we're going to try to do the same thing in high stakes contests, and so that's especially prevalent this week when we've got the mega. So anyone in that 4444 contest, definitely want to check out the high stakes ownership now at FTN.
If you're looking for some pick 'em plays across all sports, highly recommend Blickle's Discord. The link to that is down in the description. Go join now. I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!